היפה באמנות שלך, אוהד, שהיא משפרת את האיכות להרבה אנשים, וזה כשהסטודנטים והמרצים פגשו בך בקומה השנייה וכל כך התרגשו לראות אותך, זה נותן לך את המשוב האמיתי לתרומה שלך. ואחרון הדוברים, will switch to English. Our last speaker is Professor Jerry Wind. Jerry Wind is a Lauder Professor and Professor of Marketing at the Wharton School and the founding director of the Wharton SCI Center for the Advanced Studies in Management, the Wharton Fellows Program, and the Wharton Future of Advertising Program, and the co-founder of the Wharton QS Reimagine Education Program. I cut short some of your CV because I could spend a whole hour here on that. He has edited top marketing journals, published over 250 articles and 20 books. Professor Wind received 4 major marketing awards. I will not even read them now. He was one of the original legends in marketing with an 8-volume anthology published by Sage in 2014, consulted over 100 companies and testifies in intellectual property and antitrust cases, is one of the most famous business school professors and researchers in the world. And most important, Professor Wayne is one of the co-founders of IDC Herzliya together with Professor Reichman. And the fact that we are here is one of your co-creations with Professor Reichman, and of course the husband of the late Dina Wind, which we love, all of you. Just one remark. When I met my wife the first night, she's sitting here, the first night over X years ago, not to mention, it was a sort of first date. She asked me, do you love art? And I said yes. And the fact that I'm leading this panel here today, for me, is another proof how much I love art. So thank you very much. And Jerry, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Noam. Thanks for your championing of these activities and the panel, inviting the panel. And thanks also for the historical perspective that you started with, going back to the Torah. Thanks, Tom, for kind of very insightful and really inspirational discussion. Hopefully the example of Bilbao and Abu Dhabi will resonate in this audience, in this place. Thanks, Dana, for primarily the very practical kind of examples of art and terrorism. Thanks, Dani, for kind of the impactful examples that you showed of site-specific political art or actually almost human values. And thanks, Ohad, for a very insightful kind of perspective of a true artist in contrast to what kind of we heard from Plato earlier in the session. Primarily the importance of truth and human values in what you're doing. What I would like to do here is actually start with a simple premise that guides this session, which is that art is powerful. Art can enrich our lives. Art can actually lead to social change and transformation. And in the context of the Herzliya conference, I believe, and I'm glad that Noam and Alex shared the idea, which is art should be considered as a new dimension of national strength and security. Given this premise, what I primarily would like to do is 3 things. Very briefly, discuss the presence of anti-Israeli art, which we already heard some kind of great examples here, especially from Dana. 2, discuss its impact. And 3, to suggest few things that we can do to try to address it. And hopefully this will lead to some actual action here, especially inspired by what we heard from Tom, in terms of what art can do when you think about the examples of Bilbao and Abu Dhabi. But if you look at art, if you look around the world in terms of art, and you see art such as this, in terms of focusing on freedom and the like, kind of in the center, a picture here, and you see it's augmented with cartoons and ads, which are basically very strong anti-Israeli symbols. It's not surprising what we heard before from Professor Epstein when he talked about nation branding and the way Israel is perceived around the world. And this can be one of the determinants of the very negative perception of Israel. And this is not limited only to art. You have it also in literature, in academia. One of the kind of famous poems, Muhammad Darwish, in his bio, which appears everywhere where he writes, is primarily his village was destroyed by the Israelis. Not exactly a good publicity for for Israel. And then what do you think is the kind of the impact of news such as the one that we have here in terms of this is painting anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic, both or neither. Iran opens anti-Israel cartoon contest, interesting extension to the discussion we heard this morning about the threat of Iran. And there's a long history of the use of art as political weapon. You know, Dana spoke about this. I'll just go very briefly. Think about the Soviet Union, how they used it both in art and propaganda. Think about Nazi Germany. Think about a little more positive area. Think about Picasso, Guernica. Think about the Diego Rivera and kind of how critical he was for establishing kind of the Mexican identity. Think about the Great Depression and the art we had then. And primarily the question is, so what is the impact of this art, and especially the anti-Israeli art, on the world's public opinion of Israel in terms of determining the perceptions? Think back about the nation branding, in determining the preference for Israel, and determining intended or actual behavior toward Israel. Not something to be minimized. Given that we heard from Dani about the censorship or kind of effort to influence art, I think my premise would be that we should do something not resorting to censorship or to kind of bribery or incentive as was suggested by Dani today, is what we heard in the paper. So can we do something about it? I'm sure that many of you in the audience are skeptical about this. I would like to suggest, yes, there are things we can do to try to change the situation without resorting to censorship or to kind of improper bribery. And I suggest three things. First, I think we have to monitor both in the anti and pro-Israeli art and use it one of the measures of national strength, and at least to know what's happening out there. Continuous monitoring. It's very easy to do today, especially also monitoring the social networks, but I think it's quite critical. Second, I think we have created an ecosystem, an incentive system, conducive to cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian artists. I'm using an example here, a kind of a recent book that just published, it's called Beyond Advertising, where we asked primarily over 220 thought leaders in the advertising and marketing around the world to answer two questions. What could or should advertising be by 2020, and what should we do today to try to get there? Think about the equivalent to this in the art world. What could or should kind of art and the situation between the Israeli and the Palestinian be in the world? Don't try to forecast. Think about what it could or should be and what should we do today to try to get there. And there are beginnings already. There are really some encouraging beginnings of Israeli-Palestinian cooperation. But the question is, they are isolated, and how can we leverage it? What can we do to try to create the ecosystem and the incentive system to try to enhance these kind of few beginnings? And third, I think we have to create a mechanism to disseminate and use the resulting collaboration in the art world as a model for other areas. And perhaps creating the Guggenheim Jerusalem might be kind of a great symbolic way of start moving in this area. And so the idea will be here, let's do those three things. Let's monitor, let's create an ecosystem and incentive, and let's primarily create the mechanism for disseminating it. And primarily what I hope this session have done is lead every one of us to think about other ideas inspired by our keynote speaker and distinguished panelist here. And hopefully we'll realize the power of art as an important dimension of national strength, and primarily ask what can we do about it? How can art enhance our life and improve our life? Can it lead to desired social transformation? And primarily, can it improve the image of Israel around the world and lead to more constructive solution here? And the key is primarily to do something about it. So the idea is actually a plea to everyone in this audience and in the country to start thinking positively about how can we use art as a way of solving major challenges facing us, especially concerning the conflict between Israeli and Palestinian. Thank you so much.
אני חושב שג'רי סיכם בצורה נפלאה את הסשן, וכל מילה נוספת שלי תהיה מיותרת, בייחוד שכבר בחוץ התחילה ארוחת הצהריים. אני רוצה להודות מקרב לב לאורחים המכובדים שלנו שהגעתם לכאן ותרמתם לנו מהאמנות שלכם והידע שלכם, ואני מקווה שזאת תחילתה של ידידות נפלאה ביניכם לבינינו. תודה רבה לכם, תודה לכם.